Today, the day after the United States Grand Prix at the Circuit of the Americas. The day after our drive, Google Hangout. The day after a week of drive programs building up to the F1 return to America. And I'm going to start today's shakedown by telling you why I'm an idiot. And the Associated Press, the American news agency that creates and disseminates news stories, is here to help show you why I, Leo Parente, the host of Shakedown, the only real racing show on Drive, is an idiot. You're a racing idiot. See, the AP published their F1 story, and I've got the link below to the story with their headline, McLaren's Hamilton wins the US Grand Prix in Austin. Well, that's okay, but here's how it continues. Lewis Hamilton, they said, did just that on Sunday, using a thrilling pass of Sebastian Vettel at the end of a long straightaway to take the lead. And there's the clue right there. No talk occurs, no talk of DRS. You know, DRS, the thing I hate because it makes passing not a real pass, but an easy inevitability. None of that. The only thrilling part to me was how Vettel tried to defend. But to AP, it was an exciting pass. And by the way, they continued to write about racing by using the words whipped and zipped for the cars running around the racetrack. That's the level of race reporting they're giving us. They finished up using the quote from Hamilton, wicked, was how they reported Hamilton as he pumped his fist in the air, waved to the crowd, and danced on the nose of his car after the win. Oh, this is getting worse as we go. Hamilton was quoted, this is one of the best, if not the best Grand Prix we've had all year. Yeah, America. Yeah. No talk about the crowd, which was huge, 117,000 plus. Just talk about the cost, $450 million to build a joint. And yeah, let's call it a joint, because you know, the cars just kind of zip around. See, I'm an idiot for worrying about DRS and technology and all that in F1. All the unwashed masses saw was a zippy pass by some elite foreign guy that came to America. Thank you, AP. Oh, and the COTA girl joke from last week? My apologies. That really wasn't nice by me, was it? JF was at COTA, and he said the girls were beautiful. Okay, but then why were the COTA girls wearing these? Today we're going to talk about F1, because we just had the US race, and NASCAR, don't cringe. We're going to talk with Mike Spinelli, because I need to make up for that dick joke I said about it. And you need to make up for being a clown yesterday on the live chat.
I wasn't being a clown. I was just being myself.
You know what? No truer word was spoken.
I don't know. You know, we'll get to the whole live stream thing.
That was kind of rhetorical.
Oh, okay.
Actually, I want to talk to you because I know you've got some great thoughts about the topics we're going to cover, starting with, what did you think of the race, the F1 race over at COTA?
I think ultimately it was great. It was really good. And I've been trying to figure out whether I think it's great because it's great for an American race or it's actually great racing and really good for F1.
Well, I'm going to jump on that by basically saying the biggest success, it actually looked like a proper real Grand Prix.
Yeah, it did.
And a lot of the racing people had kind of dropped hints that they never felt Indy was a real Grand Prix track.
They did, right, exactly.
So now we've got a real venue. And a real show.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really good track. I'm really surprised. First of all, I'm totally surprised that they got it together. $400 million will do that, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, all the way back from me actually slamming Tavo Hellman.
Yes.
And all the politics and all the BS that went on, they, however it happened, through the lawsuits, through the construction, it all got done.
Well, you know, this is interesting because a lot of my European friends think that because they see so much chaos coming out of American media, that they just think America is just a show at this point. Yeah. And the fact that we can actually put together a race from soup to nuts over the course of like a year and a half is it shows that we can actually do some kinds of things.
It's the core of what makes America great. Finding money, spending money, moving dirt.
And moving dirt, right. We can pave anything. We will pave...
What? I was going to say, has anyone looked at a rock lately? We're just kind of grooming the ground.
We're good at the paving. And actually, speaking of paving, the track itself, the construction of the track, really looked great. It was really, you know, kind of because we're so used to seeing these Middle Eastern tracks. No, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but Yas Marina is a beautiful facility.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
You know what I'm saying? Like
good
really good things about the new tracks look really big and nice and high tech outside of America and Europe. And I'm glad to see a kind of a new track being built that is a world-class track in this country again.
And I had trouble following the race while we were doing our Google Hangout, but the race itself seemed to be pretty engrossing.
Yeah, it was. Engrossing didn't he race for, what team is he on?
Races for Lotus.
For Lotus,
yeah,
right?
he took the 5-spot penalty, which we'll get to.
We'll get to that. No, I think it was, it's funny, we were watching it and it felt like there were more passes and more action than other races. It turns out it actually wasn't more passes or more action than some other races. But so in that way, I have to sort of temper the enthusiasm for the fact that we have an American F1 race again, but it still was, I'm going to say maybe top 10. That's kind of closer to 10.
Okay, so two things come to mind, and not to be contentious about your passing.
Okay.
I think at the front, we obviously saw one pass that made the race.
Yeah.
But there was a lot more opportunity to pass than a lot of people expected. I mean, I even got criticized for saying, well, they're not going to be able to pass at this corner or this corner. It's only going to happen end of the straightaway, turn 11, end of the DRS section 12, and maybe up the hill in turn 1. But Kimi went by someone in the S's.
Yeah.
People were using that carousel area for passes.
I
think there was a lot going on.
Well, the downgrid battles were really the show. I mean, usually,
I know what you're saying.
It was almost like a MotoGP race in that way, where you were really watching downgrid more than you were watching the stuff that was happening up on top, because there was Kimi, there was Button had some nice moves. Who else? We were just talking about, Massa.
Yeah.
Massa had an excellent showing after, I guess we'll talk about that coming up too. So it was a fun race. It really was a fun, cool race to watch.
I'd be hard-pressed to find someone who had any validity to criticize what we saw for this first venue. Let's go right to Ferrari and Massa.
Yes.
The short version is they decided that Massa needed a gearbox replacement, but not really. They cracked the official seal, which caused them to take the 5-grid penalty. Grosjean, who had qualified 4th, had already taken the 5-grid penalty. And what Ferrari quickly realized is they could move, certainly Alonso, to the higher grip side of the starting grid.
All right, so
because Massa qualified ahead of Alonso.
Right, so this is complicated, right? Because this is one of those strategic moves that
within the rules.
That was within the rules, but it was a little bit unorthodox because it was
creative.
It was you take a penalty on one of your drivers to give your other driver a benefit.
Because he's fighting for the championship.
So it wasn't exactly a team order where you tell one guy to back off.
Well, apparently both drivers agreed to it. So it wasn't Massa showed up in the morning saying, hey, we just effed you, you're going back 5.
But team orders are also illegal too.
No, they're not anymore.
Oh, that's right. This is the year that they're not. Okay, so
was this?
But so actually, that's even a better question. Is this a team order, Leo? You're as an analyst. Is this a team order?
Yes. Your question or what Ferrari did? Well, that was a team strategy and it was a team order.
Was it a team order though? Because is an order only what you tell another driver about his driving?
Well, what we don't know.
Yeah.
And this is probably why Ferrari worded it that way. Did Massa agree to it? Did they ask Massa's permission, or did they order Massa to do it? Bottom line, I have zero problem with this. They're trying to win a championship. They're trying to do everything they can. It's within the rules.
Yeah.
Go at it.
It was cool though the way they did. I gotta say, I'm all for it because it was a very chessboard kind of thing.
And it probably pissed off everyone who doesn't like Ferrari because it worked.
Right, it worked.
Alonso started P7. He's on the outside, hot part of the track. Goes up the hill.
What was Alonso? Alonso qualified at 11th?
No, he was.
He was 9th.
Oh, he was 9th.
Massa was
6th.
6th. Okay, so it got them to flip spots.
Yeah.
On
So
the grid.
Alonso moved up 2 spots because of Massa and Grosjean.
Right.
So that put him 4th in line on the outside line with grip.
Okay, my question to you: did Grosjean have his issue with the gearbox before they pulled the seal off of this?
Yes, it was legitimate. They knew Grosjean was going to take the penalty when Grosjean went into qualifying.
Yeah.
So Grosjean got to 4th, and he knew he was going to end up starting 9th. So Ferrari, when they looked at all the facts, said, you know what, I can move Alonso over here. This is going to benefit Alonso. And Alonso did the job. Went up the hill. He was P7 to start on the grid, 4th in line on the fast side, went around the outside, came out of turn 1 in P4, where he needed to be to keep the championship alive. So in one corner, at the start of the race, he had put himself in position to control his destiny because Ferrari, the team, supported him.
So the problem I have with this is that we've always talked about.
But I just talked for 5 minutes.
No, but the problem I sort of have with this, and it's not really a problem because I like the nerdy stuff, but this highlights how some very nerdy rules issues in F1 can make or break the race. And if you are a fan who knows the rules, and they're very Byzantine and complex, if you know it, you can get more out of watching it. So you would have gotten this, and it's kind of more exciting for a fan to know. If you are a new F1 fan, you may not have gotten what the heck happened there.
I agree, and I'm going to make an example of disagreeing on two fronts. I almost feel like watching F1 is like reading a newspaper. You can read the headline, and if the headline's good, you're going to get something out of it. If you read the first paragraph, you go a little deeper. If you get fully engrossed and read the whole article, it goes farther. When I watch European football, I don't know all the nuances. But I'm engrossed by what I'm shown, and I know just enough to be interested. Do I know all the techniques? And would that make me even more of a fan or take me deeper? Maybe, but I know enough. I'm almost siding with Coulthard that yes, the details make you really, really know things. But even if you didn't, you kind of get that. Now, I just picked on AP because they just simplified the whole thing by ignoring all the technology and all the nuance and saying, oh, that was a fantastic pass.
Right.
When my mom could have pulled that off by hitting the DRS button.
Well, this sort of speaks to your DRS feelings, but we could get to that later.
So the next one is the whole comment about the tires and Pirelli.
Okay.
And I'm going to not linger on this a long time or pump my own chest by saying what happened is a one-stop strategy as we kind of inevitably predicted. But Pirelli took a conservative tact. They didn't bring soft tires to this track. They brought, hard and medium tires, I think, as the compounds. Yeah. And they were concerned of two things. One, they did not want to have an Indy Michelin debacle like in 2005, where there was a problem. And they didn't want a problem that would affect this championship battle.
Right.
But what they didn't know, because it was all kind of last minute, is not only the track surface, not only how low grip it was, but how cold it was going to be.
Yeah. Well, they had modeled everything.
Go ahead.
Right? So, that's really the interesting part of this whole thing is also the nerdy stuff, right?
Yeah.
So they had modeled the weather and obviously the temperature and all that stuff, and the track surface, which was kind of, from what Pirelli was saying, is it was not abrasive like a Monaco, but it was not smooth like one of the newer tracks. So it was kind of in the middle, right? Or is it?
It was smooth. It wasn't abrasive, but it didn't have any rubbering in, so it really wasn't generating any grip. The teams were struggling. They weren't getting any temperature in the tires.
Yeah.
And it's interesting how the first team to figure out a stiffer car was going to work better and generate temperatures in this process really wasn't Red Bull. It was McLaren. And to your point, they were getting no tire degradation. So that kind of gave us the heads up that this could be a one-stop strategy. Mercedes
was caught out, though.
Thought it was two-stop.
Yeah.
They caught themselves out.
Yeah.
Somehow or another, they thought it was still going to be two-stop, and they were the ones that took the extra 20-something seconds, screwed up both races.
Yeah.
But when it all gets said and done, everyone had the same battle to fight for grip, to make the tires work. So at the end of the day, what did we harm anything? Did Pirelli make a mistake?
No, I think it's a wash.
Yeah.
For Pirelli. I mean, obviously this has been a better season for Pirelli than the first season was. They've gotten more conservative, I think, this year with the compounds, right? I mean, overall, the degradation cliff isn't quite what it was.
Yeah, and I don't know whether that's conservative or just more knowledgeable.
Sure, right. Learnings possibly, right, from the.
So the last part of this Pirelli thing is a pretty obvious prediction. When this track rubber's in, when they bring a softer compound, this is going to be a track record at COTA next year.
Yeah, you think so?
They're going to go quicker.
I'm excited for this track in general, because I'm not only excited. I mean, just to sort of step out of F1 for 1 second, the other series we're going to see on this track.
Oh, who isn't coming?
I know everybody's coming.
MotoGP, V8 supercars, ALMS,
DTM. Maybe.
Not yet.
Maybe 2014, 15.
You know what? There's been rumors of them going to Montreal of all places.
Right.
Anyway.
Well, we'll see. Okay.
So let's go to the next part of the story. Why did Vettel lose? I mean, here's my argument.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, you mean your argument or his complaints?
Well, it's funny you say it that way.
Okay. All right.
Okay. So the factoid I would think is that Hamilton and McLaren at the end of the day figured out how to make a quicker car, and Hamilton drove his ass off.
Hamilton drove his ass off.
The why Vettel lost thing goes to what you just hinted about. The problem I've got with all this is, once again, here's Red Bull blaming someone else, because he was claiming that he got held up in the S's on that key lap where Hamilton went by, got held up in the S's before the long straightaway by one of the back markers, Karthikeyan, and that's what cost me the race.
Well, if it's Tuesday, it must be the back marker's fault, because, I mean, wasn't Hamilton bitching about back markers earlier this season?
Oh, I see where you're going.
So, you know, I mean, I think that it's kind of I don't know, maybe, would they rather make it a 90% 90% qualifying instead of 107?
So here's
or something else, or should they go the other way and make it like Le Mans?
No. There's
180%.
Hey, these two guys finished 30 seconds ahead of Alonso.
Right.
So does that make Alonso the back marker? At some point in time, you're going to be quick, and the others aren't.
Yeah.
Traffic is part of the deal. Here's the problem I've got, and I'm going to sound like a real Sigl about my whole DRS thing, okay? Because this one example changes my opinion. I keep saying DRS makes a pass easy. Maybe it makes a legitimate pass happen sooner and easier. Because if Vettel was such hot shit, and Karthikeyan was the reason, well, why didn't Vettel catch Hamilton and pass him back? It never happened.
It's a good point. It's a good point.
It never happened.
It was the car's fault.
It was the car's fault.
Well, ultimately, I mean, because it's not like, you know, you do have to sort of look at the car at that point. Because, I mean, how many parts of the car have they had problems with this season?
No, I just honestly, I hear you, and Weber dropped out because they had an issue, and you're right. He dropped out of Valencia.
Valencia.
Usually I stick my tongue out during the V.
Yeah.
That word. Point is, it wasn't a car problem. The car ran to the end, okay?
At least he wasn't blaming the car.
No, he had Karthikeyan. At the end of the day, the faster guy won the race.
Yeah.
Simple as
That's
that.
it, yeah.
And if Vettel was good enough to catch him back, or the car was good enough to catch him back, it would have happened. So I still don't like DRS, but I'm saying maybe it was a legitimate pass.
Oh yeah. So you're saying that? Are you saying that DRS isn't such a bad deal after all? Because
I'm saying I may have to rethink it because it's not making passes happen that shouldn't happen. Maybe it's making inevitable passes happen
just quicker,
sooner in the race.
Okay. So you have the entire race to watch the parade. So all the passes happen in the first couple of.
Now
Go ahead.
I've clearly lost you. What do you think? What do you think of COTA the track?
All right. So I like it. I think it's a good track, and I'm sure it's a great track to drive. It's not the most picturesque place. It's very grassy. I mean, I kind of like it, but it's not
What's
like.
with you and JF and the grass?
No, I don't want to. Yeah, I don't want to.
Is this some latent thing we need to talk about?
It's grassy. It's beautiful. It's
just because they legalized it doesn't mean
I like
you can
that.
race on it. Yeah.
No, but you know.
Did I lose you?
No, you didn't lose me. But what? No, I was hoping that we would do like a real architecturally amazing track there that matched some of the newer tracks.
Oh, you mean all of the
architectural details and all that stuff.
You know,
this is a very like down and dirty track. It's all about the track. And let's face it, they didn't have a lot of time.
Well, they built that tower.
Well, that's a nice tower.
They built an amphitheater thing where they're going to have concerts.
It's okay. I mean, what I mean is like,
so
it just drives home a little more of the, America is kind of more utilitarian than avant-garde.
What do you want, an In-N-Out burger?
Oh my God, an In-N-Out burger would be absolutely amazing.
So here's my takeaway on this thing, okay? I actually think it's hard to slam this as another Tilke cookie-cutter design track because the signature pieces of the front hill, the front straightaway.
The Phil Hill?
The Phil Hill. I'm not even going to get into that. Whatever they're calling it.
Well, because, this is the hill.
The Turn 1 hill.
Turn 1 hill, right.
It's a signature piece of this track that will be uniquely American.
Yeah.
And then the S's that follow it, I mean, turns 2 through 9, they're kind of decreasing speed.
Tricky, yeah.
Okay? And that, in addition to the paint, that's going to be a signature thing. And the drivers were telling me they liked it. You could tell that Vettel and Red Bull had figured out the S's, not just the driving, but the gearing. because you're downshifting as you go through the S's, and they had nailed every gear just about right. So this is going to be a signature of the track. This is where you're going to have speed, and this is the challenge.
Yes, I hadn't thought about that, but this might be a hard track to gear.
It's a totally hard track.
But that's why I like hanging out with you.
So,
but seriously, like that's if you look at what Tilke was being criticized for designing tracks that all look the same. So I think that in coming into this, he must have said, we really need a uniquely.
And I have a feeling that Tilke,
whether it's American specifically or just a unique track, to give it its own personality.
And I'm going to get these wrong, but I have a feeling that Tilke should not get all the credit, because I remember all the way back to the Tavo Hellman stuff. Mm-hmm. There were other designers and other companies that helped influence this. And at the end of the day, I think you've got a real challenging track with a signature that can be identified as US. Mm-hmm. And not to hang a guy out, but one of the teams that we know ran a car in the Porsche Cup, the Pirelli Porsche Cup series. And the driver was challenged, and he was maybe 7 seconds off where he should have been. Turns out 5 of the 7 seconds were because we hadn't figured out the S's.
Wow.
So this, JF Rhodey wants to drive the track. I'd love to race the track. I think this is going to define whether you're a racer or not.
Yeah.
So, hey, let's take the drive crew to COTA.
Yeah, let's do it.
I'm ready.
That'll be fun. No, I mean, who wouldn't want to drive that track, really?
There you go. So, what do you think of the championship fight? Before I move on, what do you think of?
How you doing?
Well, this is the point. What did you think of COTA, the event? Because I thought we would have, the best of American celebrities.
Well, we've talked a lot about
this is Matt LeBlanc.
Yeah, Matt LeBlanc from Friends.
Who, by the way,
back in
they showed 15 freaking times. Was he the only guy there?
Yeah, Friends was from what, the mid '70s? I don't remember. No, I think it was nice to have Matt LeBlanc there.
Was it? Because Patrick Dempsey needed someone to hang out with? What's the point?
I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of Matt LeBlanc.
Honestly, I think Monaco does it awesome.
You can't compare.
Well, yeah, but yes and no, okay? Because here's my...
So where are you going to go, Texas society, the big rich Texas kind of thing?
No, it's the United States.
Well,
we can't celebrity wrangle in the United States, and no, I'm not...
I agree, though. No, so you're right. All right, so what are we,
this is the best of America.
We were talking about what is America known for overseas. And, our reputation because of all kinds of reasons is tarnished in a lot of ways. But what we do have...
Oh, come on. How many countries have we bombed recently?
All right, wait a minute.
Okay, go ahead.
But what we do have is Hollywood and celebrities. So you would think that we would,
and fast
make
food.
a big showing. Well, fast food, though, look, you cannot touch Texas brisket. So I'm okay with the food they serve.
Right, I expected better celebrities.
But I expected better celebrities. At least a wider range of celebrities, right?
Than Matt LeBlanc.
I think the big problem when it came to Hollywood and getting celebrities here was that the race wasn't televised on a network in America. It was on Speed TV, which meant the ratings weren't going to be something that a celebrity PR person would have brought their A-list people over for.
So, and that becomes the myopia of U.S. only, because it's F1. I would have shown them the global F1 numbers.
True.
Billions of people supposedly watch this.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's move on to the championship. So we're still open forum here to Vettel versus Alonso. Mm-hmm. Okay, so they go to Brazil, and now he's 13 points ahead of Alonso. Mm-hmm. Through this whole thing, even with Alonso P3, he gained more points.
Right.
Okay, so now what Alonso has to do to win the championship is finish third or better if Vettel wins the race. At Brazil, Alonso's got a bunch of podiums, but he's never won. Vettel, the last 2 races, has seconds and a win.
Yeah.
So I'm putting you on the spot, but I'm not trying to. What do you think is going to happen in Brazil now?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, Alonso, there's no doubt that Alonso has been driving his ass off.
Totally.
Right? And Alonso, it's really great to see him there, because I think he, other than Vettel and Hamilton, I think he's the best real driver in the entire. I mean, and I'm a Button fan going way back, but I just think style-wise, and I'm thinking back to when he was at his peak in what was it, 2005 or 7? What was it?
Well, he won one of the championships in 5. He won it in 6.
Yeah. So there's no doubt, and I think Ferrari's got it together enough to be able to pull it off. And I think that
they're good at pulling off gearbox tabs.
Wow.
Go ahead.
But Red Bull, obviously, Vettel is it's sort of his to lose, I guess, at the end of the day.
The other guy that made a mark was Hamilton.
Oh, yeah.
And I guess the conversation we really want to have, besides his performance, and everyone's happy for him to win another race for McLaren, he's moving on to Mercedes. And we talked a little bit about it during the Google Hangout. Is that what we call it?
Yeah.
Hangout. Google Hangout. Love the hats, by the way.
Yeah, the hats were...
They had to do the hats,
Hats were really
guess.
special. Yeah, I know, you had to do the hats.
So what do you think of him moving to from McLaren
in a
to
way,
Mercedes?
In a way, it sort of feels like, the baby bird leaving the nest, right? Because, don't forget, when he went to Ron Dennis when he was 10 years old and said to him, one day I'm going to be racing for you, I'm going to win the championship, right? So he was a 10-year-old Carter at that time, and look what happened. Yeah. So it sort of feels, it's kind of bittersweet at the same time, because there is that kind of almost familial connection between the two of those guys.
And he's not going into a place that's completely lost, as much as everyone would argue. It's a Mercedes factory team.
Yeah.
Next year, McLaren will not have a factory Mercedes engine. They're going to be a customer.
Yeah.
Ross Brawn is not a slouch.
No.
I've heard him build cars that kind of worked.
Yeah.
So, and there's money. Mercedes reinvested in the F1 team. Didn't they just buy out the Arab Middle Eastern financiers that were part of their partnership?
Yeah. Yeah.
They did,
but I don't remember the name. It was the Sovereign Wealth Fund. I can't, what was it? Abar, right, exactly.
So, he's not going to a backmarker team, as we keep using that word.
Yeah.
I think you're right. It's really down to, it's time as a racing driver to take a leadership role in a team and build that reputation.
Yeah.
And maybe, for whatever reasons, at McLaren, something has kind of drifted from that type of leadership, because I think you'd be hard-pressed to say that Button hasn't made his mark at McLaren. So, Mike, yesterday we did that Google Hangouts thing for the F1 race.
Yes.
And that's not just the only time we're going to do this. This is kind of a test for Drive.
Yeah, I mean, the whole Google Hangouts thing is an experiment that we're going to be using across all of the shows that we do. I mean, ultimately, the goal is to get you guys more involved in the stuff that we're doing, so it's not just us bloviating all the time. I mean, or me. Speaking of...
Was that lunch? No. And not all the shows, like Road Testament.
Road Testament, we're going to be doing a little more interactive stuff on Road Testament using Google Hangouts.
So I guess here's the key thing of all that. We like the input, we like the interaction. It's called the internet. Ha ha ha. Yep. What would you like to see as we do these Google Hangouts? What would make it better for you? For example, for me, as much as I love the fun and the yucks, okay? Yesterday, I like it when Stephen
more sound effects.
I like it when Stephen Colbert does the joke relevant to the topic we're talking about. Well, so my question,
I was doing very relevant sound effects.
Yeah, my question is, would you like these type of chats to be more kind of focused on the story? Not that we're going to be hard-ass reporters, but you actually are a journalist. I mean, should we? And plays one on the internet.
Just wind me up and...
Would you like us closer to the storyline? Do you want it more structured? I mean, I prepped some notes, and we kind of shared, but should we stay that way? Or are you comfortable with it being the equivalent of a bunch of guys hanging out at the bar or a dorm room, just kind of chatting an opinion?
Yeah, I mean, I think what we did well was you guys asked us questions using the comments, and I relayed them to you. Or
yeah, you were very
So I think that was that's a good way to.
And I got to tell you, it was tough. I respect the announcers. It was tough to follow the race.
Oh yeah.
As we were multitasking. JF was at the race over at Austin, and he sent us a tape. He had a chance, as part of a process, to sit down with Christian Horner, the head of Red Bull Racing, and Andreas Sigl. How'd I do? Sigl? Yeah. Still got it wrong. Freaking not Italian guy for Infiniti. Who's the liaison for Infiniti with Red Bull Racing. And they talked a little bit about the U.S. venue. They talked about their collaboration. Let's listen to what JF got from talking to these two guys.
What's great with the way they've constructed this circuit is you see the cars at their best, high-speed corners, whereas previous circuits have either been makeshift or adapted, like in Indy and so on, whereas this one is specifically designed to showcase Formula One cars.
How accurate is the simulation now? What can't you get from it?
Well, I mean, what we lacked on the simulation here because they weren't made with the curbs. So the drivers got to drive the track without the curbs, but we put our best guess in, and they don't seem too far away. So you will learn a huge amount from simulation. Also, in the run-up to the weekend, technically you can look at different setups and so on, and as you gather data, your simulation only comes stronger. It's a compromise, so you need to have, we've got the slowest straight line speed of any of the cars, but we're carrying quite a lot of downforce to go through the corners quicker, so we're hoping by the time we get to the straight we're a couple of cars lengths ahead so they don't manage to get into the DRS zone. To be a true world championship you've got to be in the US, but I think it will be a track you can overtake at. That long straight and a lot of tarmac on the way into turn whatever it is at the end of the straight. I think you will get more overtaking than people predict here. We're always looking to push the boundaries, to be creative, to test ourselves. And I think our spirit, our approach is different to the other teams. We're not as corporately driven perhaps as some of the other teams. There's more freedom in the way we express ourselves, and that comes through into creative design as well. Nobody wants to let the other guys down, so that's the true essence of being a team. Adrian was a key recruitment for me because he put the technical direction, into the team. But then it's like having a great conductor but no orchestra. You've got to have all different instruments in the right position. Adrian sets the tempo, but there's a lot of different departments that are all contributing, that have got responsibilities for their areas. So every time the car runs, it's a prototype. And for example, we have great interaction with Infiniti on the technical side. So we do an awful lot of work with the guys, from the Nissan R&D side, looking at future technology 1 or 2 years down the road as well, which is something that previously for us wasn't available.
Yesterday you spoke about the relationship with Nissan and Infiniti in terms of developing the curve system. What other technology are you partnering on, looking in the future for? What is it that is really the focus now for next year?
Well, things like material science. These guys are investing a huge amount into material science and vehicle dynamics and simulation, and they're all aspects that they have much longer lead times than we do. But obviously, I think Nissan have 20,000 designers working in R&D.
If you got 600 people working making keys, we got maybe 19,000 working around the world. And if a race car is being built as a prototype every 2 weeks, we have an entire group that is 10, 15 years thinking out. So they don't get their motivation from automotive players. Maybe they go to the zoo or somewhere. They gotta be out there thinking, how do cars look like and drive, and what are materials like in 10 years from now. So that's something we pretty much opened our toolbox. We brought Christian and Adrian to Atsugi twice now, either themselves or the R&D team, and opened up our toolbox and said, here it is. And there's obvious stuff like lightweight materials. And there's crazy stuff like we have a scratch shield paint, which is self-healing on our road cars. I thought there would be no interest whatsoever, but there's an interest in the Formula One team even on scratch shield paint. So there's many areas, if it's processes or technologies, that we'd be happy to share and at the same time learn. Because we are a super tanker and they are a speedboat, so it's good for us to learn something also.
What did you find interesting with the scratch-free paint? That's such a weird thing.
It's surface finish. Surface finish. So obviously the cars are aerodynamically very critical. So surface finish is something that's very important to us.
Okay, so don't hate me, but the other thing that happened this weekend, the same weekend as COTA in the US, was NASCAR's championship, and Roger Penske's team finally won their first NASCAR championship. And the reason why I mention all this is there actually are a couple of things that came out of this that I think are a big deal enough. I'm going to pontificate a little bit.
Go ahead.
Bloviate, as you choose to call it. First of all, put your NASCAR thing aside and think about these two things. Penske Racing, if you want to understand how to race, the business, the sport, the marketing. Go check what Roger Penske has done in this profession, in this sport. Actually, our Friday Shakedown is going to cover a little bit of Penske Racing, their background and the backstory. And number 2, Keselowski won the championship. Well, that's how they celebrate in NASCAR. Keselowski won the championship. And what he said in his interview, not the drunken one that you need to show me the video of, but one of his real interviews. His message is pretty clear, too, and pretty cool about NASCAR. He literally said, look, all my life I've been told I'm too slow, too short, too this, not to be a champion. And that was his motivation. But then he finished by saying, I'm still that guy. I'm still too slow. I'm still not strong enough. I'm still not the guy. But my team at Penske made me good enough to win the championship. And honestly, if you look at NASCAR, in my opinion, you can slam it all you want. But the one thing that is true about NASCAR, it is a team sport. And Keselowski's comment really is something that drives home the real side of NASCAR racing. And the F1 guys, they're paying attention to NASCAR. They know they've got to beat these guys in America. They're marketing. And there's a team aspect going all the way back to your Hamilton versus Button thing. Mm-hmm. So if there's any message, that's the point I want to make about NASCAR. Hats off to my guys, Roger Penske. They're good friends, professional friends of ours. And watch the Friday Shakedown. We're going to tell you all the fantastic things this guy has done in racing.
Cool. Cool.
But back to the F1 thing, and to close this, you had a really valid question to ask the fans, the viewers, about what happened this weekend.
Well, I was really curious as to whether any race fans or any just kind of car enthusiasts have started watching F1 because it's on in the U.S. now, or that you have. I mean, it hasn't been that long that we haven't had an F1 around here, but I'm just curious as to whether the Austin, the F1, the Grand Prix of the Americas has led you to watch more F1.
Well,
or to be more interested in the rest of the season.
And I think that question plays at a couple of levels, because jalopnik.com, for example, you did a ton of stories about introducing F1 to your audience. Mm-hmm. And you can be a car fan, but you may not know of F1. You can be a NASCAR fan, and you may not be knowledgeable of F1. You may not need to be, but did any of this about COTA and Austin pique your curiosity to learn more? Did our live chat do that? The things we do here, did that help? And I'm curious, not about just us, but are you more interested in F1 because of all this experience?
Yeah. Are there any new F1 fans because it's here in Texas? We're not here in Texas, but 400,000 miles away in Texas, or wherever that is.
Michael, thanks again.
Thanks again.
Sorry about the joke.
Nah, it's okay.
You know, I promised Ian this was going to be a 7-minute show.
Kind of off by about, what time is it? Tuesday?
It's 9, yeah, I was going to say, it's time for the Friday Shakedown. Thanks. Just click to the next show.